Wow. Anyways, this is just a preview. I just want to do a quick shout out to all of you to say welcome to the show. But I'm going to bring the show on a little bit later too. But I just wanted to say, yay! The day is here. The pilot episode for We Do Virtual Events Live is here. Absolutely thrilled because I have 5 speakers international. Two of them are international, so I'm kind of really excited, and there's going to be a lot of fun here, so tune in. If you don't have coffee, or you're kind of the future person where you're probably about to simmer down and end your day, well, we have a lot for you today, and this is the panel, so stay tuned, and we're starting in about 10 seconds. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm just going to go right into it because the show, we have 6 people on the show. I'm waiting for another speaker, but I'm going to kind of bring on my my sidekick for the day, and he's my friend, Scott Gombar. Whoop, whoop. Hey, Scott, good to see you. Welcome to the show.
Also known as Robin, the sidekick.
I knew he's going to throw out some jokes today. I could count on him right here. So this is going to be fun. Joke. It's okay as long as it's a joke, we get people entertained and have a little bit of fun, and we'll go from there. So Scott, I shared on social media today on a lot of my posts, and I said, there are 5 people on the show today, and 2 of them I've only met them in person, and I asked people to guess who they are. So maybe we can reveal that at the end of the show. Very interesting. All right, everybody, I just want to kind of say something before we get started. So I'm just going to read my notes so I won't forget everything. If you're kind of brand new to me and you're wondering, like, what is this show is going to be about? Well, We Do Virtual Events Live is a features trailblazing conversations with global virtual event pathfinders who reimagine the traditional event experience. Why I thought of this was I've been probably doing a lot of online events or virtual events. I could probably be the godmother of hybrid events because I started there, and there was a lot of conversation lately about, oh my God, we should have a lot of conversation about virtual events, whether they're just meetings or live events. We put that in the mix, whether it's podcasting, I don't know, Clubhouse, or oh my God, there's so many things people are doing, especially post-pandemic. So I thought it'll be great to get a show going, and I do have the tribe for it. So that's why I'm bringing, my connectors, my pathfinders. I call them pathfinders because many of them have been on the, online space for quite a while and have done a lot of virtual events. So Scott and I really basically, when we met, right, Scott, we met in person because you and I live like close by in the same state, in the same town. How long have you been doing your virtual events?
Well, we kind of were violently shoved into it last year, but even before that, I would say, I go back to the days of Blab. So, what is that, 6-7 years ago now?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Yes.
When Zoom was in its infancy and people really didn't use it much. And it's been at least 6-7 years.
Wow. That's when when I started to go back and meet people online and reconnecting with those who I've met through Blab or Google Hangouts. And actually, I have 2 of them on the show today. And when I met everybody, I was like, oh my God, I thought it was just like 3-4 years ago. And I started calculating. I'm like, no, it's more than that. It's been a while. So when the pandemic hit us, it was just like, nothing new, nothing changed. Anyways, I wanted to kind of just say a quick hello to Jay and Beth, who's watching in our live show. Live stage is on Crowdcast. I just want to say welcome to the show. And if you're here, please do say hello so that we can say hello to you back. And Scott just said hello on social media, so I'm putting it up. All right, Scott, just a quick intro about you.
So I own Watch Tech, which is we do a lot of proactive IT. And I'll joke about my office being a mess because that means I'm good at what I do. That's what they tell the world, that those people that are in IT that have messy desks and offices are good at what they do. But we just make sure that everybody's computer, servers, technology runs the way it should be running. And I also run a group called Main Street Networking. That is relatively new, kind of born because of the pandemic. But it's a networking group, a little different than most other networking groups in that we really trying to build the relationships up.
And you started this group basically post-pandemic, and it started in person, later on became just like online event, right?
In person, awesome. It was only like 4 or 5 people. Now we're around 20, and I'm getting ready to launch a second group.
See, this is what we're talking about, and that needs to be a conversation. All right, everybody, I'm bringing up all the speakers today who is featured on this panel. So we have, you see on the image on your screen right now. All right, if you're watching this, you can either go to wedovirtualevents.live to get information, or for many of you who are just love mobile, just scan that QR code, and then you can go right to the live stage. All right, everybody, here they are. Let me put them up on screen. Whoop, whoop. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I think, Steve, you're muted, just to let you know. Let's just kind of go around the room. So this is going to be interesting. We have 2 future people. When I say future people, I'm referring to the time zone, because I'm pretty much kind of almost lunch. I know somebody's probably tea time, and somebody here is actually the evening dinner gal. So let's just have the dinner gal go first. And who could that be?
1 out of 2. So yes. Hi, everybody. I am Liron Glickman. I'm in Tel Aviv, Israel, which is a bit after 6 p.m. here right now. I am a global business development consultant, and I specialize in networking, creating, and opening new global opportunities. I work with startups on the one hand. On the other hand, I'm an international speaker that speaks about the art of networking, personal branding, and business development. And I'm so happy to be here again with you, Zeph. I think we've been together for so many years. So it's great to be here once again and meet all of the other participants.
So happy, because you know what? Liron and I actually met through a friend who had, through a friend in the UK, right? That's what happened. And she recommended that I connect with you because I was doing my show. And then that was like probably 8 years ago. Then we were like, oh my God, let's do a show together. And that's how Liron and I met. So that's another future person in here. And it's probably tea time. And that would be...
Oh, that would be me. Hello, I'm Hilary, and I'm in just outside London, and it's just after 4 p.m. And unfortunately, I'm so un-British in the fact that I don't drink tea. Yes.
Uh-oh. And what do you do for tea time? Nothing?
Okay, for tea, cocktails. It's more cocktails. Cocktails or mocktails.
The ladies, right.
Too much fun. And, Hilary and I, we met on Blab.im, remember? And Hilary and I, when we first met, guys, she asked me, she read my profile. She says 200 miles per hour. And I'm like, yes, 200 miles per hour. So that was a conversation about that. We'll probably share sometime, maybe next week or whatever, that video of Hilary and I had this conversation on Blab.im, and she was asking me about like my definition of 200 miles per hour, and that was kind of cool. Anyways, that's how we connected. And I just want to pull up some comments here. Tina Kadish, welcome. She says love cocktails, and somebody said cocktails are much better. I'm sure it is. All right, here we go. And the last person we would like to say hello to is Steve Spiro. Hi, Steve. You're muted.
Muted. 2020 theme song. You're on mute. Hey, what's going on, Zeph? Hey, everybody. Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, hailing from you live and direct from Stamford, Connecticut, USA. I am the host of the LinkedIn Live Master Connection series show, which is actually this Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern. But then again, we're going to start on Mondays at 6:21 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, my story briefly, a shy, introverted kid from the Bronx who now has over 17,000 contacts on my phone and over 12,000 LinkedIn connections. I help entrepreneurs and wantrepreneurs connect more effectively and grow their network. My passion is to inspire people to get out of their comfort zone also through speaking engagements, coaching, and mentoring. So I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn or however you can connect.
I love that. So folks, really the conversation that we're, talking about today. Somebody did say something. Tina Katie says, hi, Steve. So we do have some fan base going on right here. Whoop, whoop. Anyways, we're kind of waiting for Kenya, and I think she's probably running a little bit late, but let's get started anyways. So folks, if you're watching this today, our topic for the show is the new normal for networking. So if you're exploring your new normal for networking, I would like to really have this conversation with the panel, because it's really important, I think, for all of us, whether it's post-pandemic or pre-pandemic, what is your new normal for networking? For me, my new normal started like probably almost 10 years ago. That's when I started playing around with Google Hangouts on air. And I'm like, oh, I like this. I probably just dress waist up, and then I don't have to brush my teeth. I don't have to put deodorant on. I'll just show up, and I still can connect with people and do business. So that's how I really got started. So let's take this question. Question number one basically is, what is your definition of the new normal when it comes to networking for you? Now, whoever wants to get started, just go ahead and, get us started. Scott, I think you asked this question, didn't you? I'm sorry, Steve. Do you want to start? Go ahead.
I am the guy that hates uncomfortable silence. So if I hear like more than a couple seconds of silence, I always jump in.
You're jumping in.
Yeah.
I love it.
So it's interesting, right? So not a lot has changed per se, although the amount of it has changed, right? So before the pandemic, I was always on LinkedIn, and I was setting up calls and Zoom calls well before the pandemic hit on networking. Now, a lot of my in-person networking, of course, was in person. Of course, it was going to different types of locations and so forth. And so that shifted a little bit to now I do virtual, almost exclusively virtual on Zoom. And that's been fun. But LinkedIn, I was doing LinkedIn for a long time and started to have meetings with people through Zoom. So that was a way that I could connect with people across the country and connect that way. So not a lot has changed, except for I used to do a lot more coffee meetings in terms of networking, and now it's coffee on Zoom, if you will. So that's been my networking, and it's been great. I think the thing I've found over this new normal is more connected now than ever, because a lot of times getting together with people for coffee or whatever and at a live event, it was hard getting our calendars together. But now, since we're all maybe pajama bottoms, who knows what everyone has below the screen here, we could go anywhere, and we could be anywhere we are virtually, and we're still connecting, and it's pretty awesome. So that's what it's been for me.
Great. I love it.
Absolutely.
I'll try not to repeat what you said, Steve, because I like what you said, and you really inspired me as well with some of things that I've experienced. But I think in general, people that maybe like us, as far as I know, we've used Zoom conversations and so on before the pandemic, so it was kind of easier to adapt. But I realized a few things. First of all, in terms of timing, I think the attention span now is harder. People are more, I think, aware of their time and why calls should be not in an organization, at least with self-employed and startups, more concise, and you don't want to spend too much time on Zoom, so you try to be more focused, which sometimes takes away some of the connectivity, but it does work for productivity. And another thing would be the fact that you can ask a bit more personal questions, because if they see your kid running around in the background, or obviously the pandemic has affected everybody. So it's kind of allowed us to become more personal with people and ask questions that we couldn't ask before. So in this regard, I feel like I could connect to, people or strangers more when job related or cold calls or so on. I could get connected to them a bit more. I do feel like it's hard for people now in Israel when we're going back to meeting people. I feel like it's hard for people to actually meet one another. They prefer to run away to the computer or Zoom or phone. And I think that's the other side of the pandemic. How are we going to get back to that? That's my thoughts. Would love to know yours.
Thank you, Laron, for sharing that. Hillary, would you like to go?
Absolutely. I was very, very much involved here in the UK with face-to-face networking. And before the pandemic, I was getting a bit fed up of it in the way that the formats that they were being done in. So we started to make changes. And then the pandemic hit, and as with the rest of the world, we all went online. And just to confirm, I'm wearing shorts. Actually, I'm pretty much dressed.
I was just going to have you show us.
Yes, I'm wearing shorts.
There you go. I knew she'd do it anyway. That's just Hillary. So whoop to you.
And I think what Leanne was saying about the online meetings, the productivity increasing, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, I've been able to have meetings with people that if I'd had to go to London, sit down for 2 hours, come home, that's pretty much the day written off, because it would have got to 4 p.m. and I'd have been having cocktails. So I'm finding the productivity levels have increased a lot more, which in turn gives me a better quality of life with my family and my friends. And I've taken up sport that I haven't been able to do for a number of years. And so I'm finding that really productive. But we also had to move an in-person awards ceremony for a health and beauty industry here in my county online. And that was a challenge, because we couldn't have other people come into the house. Originally, we were going to have a production team in the same space. Then our restrictions were increased. So it was just me and my business partner. And somehow we winged it through StreamYard. We used StreamYard. It wasn't brilliant. It wasn't slick and smooth, but it did what it needed to do as a first off trial. And that got me thinking for other ways that we can then go on to use live events. So the new normal for me, I don't know what it is yet, because I'm still discovering, and I don't know what I was getting away from the normal before. So I'm finding this period now, things are opening up and technology is increasing and my awareness of what's available is increasing. There's a bit of excitement coming on in my world. So that's where I stand.
I love it when you go into your excitement mode, because I just love, just an example would just happen. She'll just get up and show you whatever it is. I love that. But thank you for doing that. That's just great entertainment, spot on, improv. I know, Steve, you wanted to share something else. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So I think one of the things that it's also done, and Hillary, I think you might have touched on a little bit, or Laron, and that is, what it's done is it's created this little real estate here that you got to be really attuned to. And so, whether it's virtual backgrounds or, what's behind you, and somebody mentioned it right already, that, there's some conversations that can happen regarding that perhaps didn't happen. But I think what it's also done for me is it's really helped me really refine my communication skills. When you had coffee with people, there was a tendency, I don't know about you guys, but I could be a little ADHD. You're looking around, all this, who's coming in and all that. But now you got to be zoned in with who you're speaking to, and you got to really, and then you get to see their reactions, and it's right there. It's right on screen. Whereas again, if you're in an environment, you kind of lose some of that sometimes. Whereas you're getting it, it's completely focused on the person, and they're focused in on you. So that to me is a new version of networking now, where your facial expressions and what you're dressed like and all those things are super magnified. So it's really, I think it's changed things a bit as well.
I think the fact that, we're online because we're like straight on camera, right? I think mindset wise, everybody goes like, I have to be on, right? I have to make sure that I'm not like, my mind is just like birdies or stars or something, because people can tell. Like if I was just looking and checking on my phone, like I just did, because I wanted to make sure that Kenya's okay. Like people can tell if you're being present or not. And I think that's just like, whoop, And I think the other end of that is the fact that all the Zoom meetings can really, that's why people have to Zoom fatigue, because of having to be on all the time. So that's, I think, a new normal for many people right now. All right, Scott, do you want to weigh in on this too? Because I know this was a question that you shared.
I think the new normal is going to be a hybrid of what we've experienced in the last year and a half and what we've experienced prior to that. So some of the groups that I do belong to have started going back to in person, but now they know, well, if it snows, we can do this online, or whatever the case may be. And I think it's true for the whole world, not just the networking world, but the whole world now knows we can do this online. Also, Steve said, I started to look at something else, and Steve said ADHD, and I said, oh, let me look back. So there is some of that too. Like we're trying to do more, squeeze more into a smaller window now. And I think that the virtual networking plays a big part into that. But while I enjoy physically networking, going out to meet people, I also love the convenience of sitting down at my computer and talking to people as well. I've been, all morning today. So it does more efficient. To Hillary's point, I don't have to travel to, a city a half an hour away and then travel back and, park and all that other stuff. So.
Absolutely. Here's a comment from Tina Kadish, and she says, I think it's more efficient to have virtual events. I love the in person, but now I am loving the virtual. That's how I really got started with my own new normal. When I mentioned, I did a lot of in-person events. One of the challenges as a, event organizer or facilitator, what happened was, and how I really got started to this new normal of doing virtual events, was the fact that, I felt that I was the only passionate one in the in-person networking rooms and trying to fill those seats, every week or every month or every bi-weekly. And I realized I got tired really fast, and, I was just like stressed out. And I figured there must be a way. I can get to Lerone, who's in Israel, or Hillary in the UK, or Steve in Stanford, which I don't like to drive to. There must be a better way where people can tune in or consume my content or whatever I have to share, or my tribe has to share at an in-person event. That's when I started playing with Google Hangouts, and I'm like, you know what? This is cool. I'll do like some kind of TV show. People just come in and chat, because I was thinking, if the Kardashians can do it, I can do it too, and that was my thought process. But then I realized, wow, so I played around. Me and my team of interns really took we carried a lot of equipment just to kind of improve the quality of our streaming or our content. And then I'm like, if I'm carrying all this stuff, I literally can do it anywhere in the world, including my home. So that's really my new normal, and that's how I got started. And now, post-pandemic, people are talking about, I'm not really post-pandemic, like during pandemic, people are talking about maybe the future of events will be hybrid events. I'm like, really? Hybrid events is nothing new. They're nothing new. It's just, people are thinking it in a different way, kind of during pandemic kind of thing. So that's how I got started with my new normal of doing virtual events. And that's how I got to meet all of you folks. So here's the second question. Thank you, everybody, for sharing that. So the second question I really want to kind of talk about is, because virtual events, when we talk about virtual events, some people think about, what does that look like? A webinar, a Zoom meeting? What is that? And now there's so many different types of virtual events. So let me ask you this. And the question is, what virtual networking event format do you find to be most engaging? Maybe educational, informational, or, gamified networking events. And what is a great virtual event duration for your choice, in your opinion? Does anybody want to start us off? Maybe Steve will start us off again.
I can start, maybe. Yeah.
There you go.
Lerone, you want to start? I don't have to take it. It sounds
yes,
like
please. Let's do it. Yeah, this time. Thank you. So I just have to say, first of all, because we are almost post-pandemic here in Israel, and we actually, I had a first event a few weeks ago, and I was looking at people in the audience, and it was so weird. I was used to see the squares of the Zoom, so even going back, it's a bit weird to going back to meeting people. But I do have to say that in my experience, from two sides of the screen, from the one who is facilitating webinars and events online, and the one who is also participating in ones. I think the most engaging ones are really up to the facilitator, how much he is getting the people involved, how much he knows to use different tools like Mentimeter or Padlet, if you know of those, that kind of engages people. So I think it's really about the facilitator. And in terms of length, I think 45 minutes, tops hour is a max.
Love that. Thank you for sharing that, Laurent.
Thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, so I haven't been to a lot of different formats as far as virtual. There was one that I was at where they kind of they recreated a kind of like what live would be on virtual, where there was like tables and then there was seats around the table and you could jump, and the technology didn't work so good, so it was okay. It was an interesting idea. I haven't seen it executed, and I think that would be cool, but it wasn't something that I was able to do. So for me, almost all of my virtual events have been, for the most part, Zoom. I did go to one where there was a screen and then we were all, listening, but you couldn't see each other, and I didn't like that. I like Zoom where you could see people. So I think it's been great. I think for me, I think an hour max is it. I get again, maybe my ADHD is kicking in, because I lose attention span after an hour. But I think it's great. And what I like, I happen to belong to Master Networks, and I like the formatting where it's like you're in the whole room, and then there's some breakout sessions where you're in with smaller amounts of people. Sometimes they even break it out where it's just a one-on-one scenario, which is great. Kind of breaks the meeting up. There's some training in the middle of it. So I like the diversity of that type of meeting. But ultimately, yeah, if we're networking, it's great. And what's great about Zoom, and again, me, a shy, introverted guy, when I would have to go to a live event and I have to physically walk up to people, and then I have to say, hey, you have a business card. Oof, stress level, anxiety. Now all you got to do is right click on their picture, and then you chat, direct message, and hey, let's connect and let's schedule a meeting and a follow-up meeting. And I think it's a lot easier. So anyway, that's my perspective.
I love that. Thanks, Steve. Hillary?
I've been to some of those events that Steve's explained and described as well, and I really see the value in those. But I've also, I'm involved very much in a project that's to do with books at the moment. That's a business that's launching later this year. And so I've been able to attend events with authors where they've been talking about their books. So basically it's been the information that I've needed to find. So from my point of view, it would have been educational. And that's where they were just being interviewed on a screen, say on Zoom, just the two of them. So I could sit back, arms up, didn't have to have pants on, that kind of thing. And really get into that and enjoy that. So there's a big thing. Whereas before, again, I would have had to travel into London to go to a bookstore to listen to that kind of conversation. And it saved me time-wise, absolutely, phenomenal amounts of times. And so for educational purposes, obviously, a lot of our children, school children, have been educated over the pandemic through online methods. And yes, the results they're yet to be really gauged. But I think that's a way forward, because you can actually learn in your own time. And again, and obviously you can see the replay. An hour, I think after an hour, I'm done. I think 45 minutes is ideal, maximum an hour. Otherwise, I'm going to get really, really twitchy.
Really twitchy. I love that. Like, I gotta go pee kind of thing. Okay.
Or I start singing musicals.
I know. Scott.
Yeah. I think I prefer educational with some entertainment and gamified involved. The group that I've sort of created during this pandemic is, our primary focus is education for business owners. But then we, this week, because we had unforeseen events occur, we included some gamifying, and that naturally created entertainment. But nothing like seeing people sweat a little bit to create some entertainment. But I agree. I most of the stuff I do is usually 90 minutes. But I do, I'm the same kind of person. You'll probably see me turn my camera off at some point and, I don't know, stretch or get up and walk around. I'm considering getting a stand-up desk. Like Steve, I can't sit still for that long of a period of time and be in the conversation 100%.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Well, folks, before I just share this also, I just want to say, what you just said, everybody touched on this, the fact of, this 7 seconds attention span that we all have, especially when we're doing virtual events, right? And I think this is why I wanted to bring this conversation to the show, is because there are so many kinds of virtual events, and for networking itself, it helps us to be a little bit creative with how we want to develop the format of a virtual networking event. So one of the things that I had mentioned to all of you is that September 1st, I'm doing some sort of virtual networking expo where it has a combination of different things. And I think that's gamification and, booth, because where virtual events are heading, it's just not Zoom. It's just not, Crowdcast or all the streaming platforms. It has a full-blown virtual event software and platform. Like it has, oh, you want to do trade show? Great. There'll be a trade show corner of the app. Do you want to do live stage presentation? Sure, that's another corner for that. Do you want to have a virtual booth to sit down where you can actually pull everybody aside? Or if you want an avatar and have your own campus for a virtual event. I mean, there's a lot of things that have come through my way, and I've had to test them, the software, the platform. There's so many to choose from, and I think it helps us who produce or plan, organize, manage virtual events to kind of think about a networking event can be much more interesting than just 6 people, 5 people, 20 people, 50 people on a screen and just have talking heads. So that's it. Let us go to a quick intermission, and we'll be right back.
Explore and discover with us why virtual events are becoming more essential to what you do and how you connect with the audience. How to choose the right type of virtual event for you. What kind of tools and resources are needed to produce your virtual event. How to pick the right virtual event service providers. How to monetize and profit from your virtual event. For more exclusive content, resources, and opportunities regarding virtual events, join our online community.
Oh, I was still dancing. Anyways, so that tribe.wedovirtualevents.live is where you can join our online community, learn more or discover more or explore things that you've never known about virtual events, whether it's webinar, podcasting, Clubhouse, Zoom meetings, and all the stuff, event tech. We have 8 categories that we're going to bring together into a conversation, into the panel conversations at wedovirtualevents.live. And they basically are networking, event tech, career development, education, tourism, and hospitality, and content creators. I tell you, there is a lot of ideas surrounding virtual events, and I know many people enjoy using Zoom, but I created this hashtag called "I'm allergic to Zoom." It's not because of the platform, because I want to create an awareness that there is more out there that you can do with your virtual events, whether it's a virtual trade show, whether it's a talk show, whether it's an online training course that you have live presentations. There's a lot of ways to approach your virtual events. So do join us at tribe.wedovirtualevents.live. All right, we'll bring back the panel right now. So the next question I have right here is, let me put it up. Oh, well, actually, let me just read this. Have you been asked, because, now that many of us here, especially in the US, are, have been vaccinated. So this question have been asked once or twice. Have you been asked this question before, which is, why did you choose to remain virtual when the world is returning to in person? Anybody want to start us off? Lerone, do you want to start us off?
Yes, I can. I mean, here, most of the population got vaccinated by February or March or so. So we've been out for a while. I think people want to meet in person. So I didn't get asked this question, but I have to say that I have used the excuse sometimes where I was too busy and didn't want to go to meet, because of all the commute and all the mess. So sometimes I did, say that I prefer to meet with Zoom. And I think today there is more acceptance to meet through Zoom because of all the advantages. So the only thing I can take from that I recommend is really try to see how to use Zoom or online meetings more to just make sure that your work and day is more productive. And it's okay, people accept that more and just use it.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Steve.
Yeah, I could jump in. Yeah, so, in the Northeast here, things are just starting to open up. So I don't think the question has come up yet. I think it will at some point. My perspective is I'm going to, what Scott mentioned earlier, for me, it'll be a hybrid approach, and it's going to be some online. I think before I was very quick. If I met somebody and we wanted to have a follow-up meeting, I was quick to do a coffee. And I think maybe I might start with a Zoom, kind of start the conversation, start the relationship, see if there's real synergy and there's a good jiving kind of thing going on. And then maybe a follow-up to that would be a in-person coffee meeting. Virtual events, similarly, I mentioned before, I find it a lot easier, being a little bit shy and introverted, to be able to do the online, but also it's a lot more time efficient, right? So you can go ahead and accomplish a lot without having to have a 45-minute each way drive time. So there's great value to the online piece of it as well. And then of course you have a much broader reach. In person, you're dealing with a 90-mile radius kind of yourself, basically. And, I'd never be able to chat with Hillary or Lerone if it wasn't for online type, virtual meetings. So, yeah, I think there's value in both.
Absolutely. Scott, do you want to share something?
I agree that there is value in both. And I think it's probably important that we do get out a little bit and go to meet people in person. But with the same token, yes, how do we meet people in Israel and in UK and anywhere else in the world? And I've had conversations with other people in our networking groups now that started out locally based. We have people from Washington, D.C. and North and South Carolina, which is thousands of miles away from us, or hundreds of miles. I'm exaggerating a little. Hundreds of miles away. We have people from Stanford where it takes 4 hours to get there if you leave at 6 a.m.
Oh my goodness, so true.
So yeah, that is part of it. I think ultimately it really depends on who the participants are. I can tell you I'm in one networking group. I'm not going to mention any names. It's a well-known networking group that the conversation is currently being had. Do we return to in-person or do we remain virtual? And I would say it's probably 60-40, 70-30 in favor of virtual right now.
Yeah.
So it is still,
I agree.
Yeah, I think people still would prefer to remain virtual. And I don't think it's all COVID based. I think a lot of it is because it's convenient. It's
not only
easier.
convenient, I think quality of life, because I feel for many people, it has changed their quality of life. They've had a taste of during pandemic, like, oh my God, I bought back 1 hour of my life, and I could spend it on the tennis court like Hillary is doing right now. See, and things like that are popping up, not only for not just popping out for businesses or entrepreneurs, but in the corporate world. Companies are trying to decide if half or 50% of their employees should just stay remote and stuff like that. I just want to take a few comments right here. And somebody, I don't know who this is, Facebook
Julia.
user. If you're getting a Facebook user, you're probably commenting in the group where we actually are streaming this to, and you've not given StreamYard the permission to put up your name, then that's why it says Facebook user. But anyways, it said whoever said this, now I have so many people from around the country and around the world, I am going to have to meet online. That is exactly right. And somebody else said, agree with Steve, you get to see who you have chemistry with, and a great next step is meeting in person if you can. That's exactly what happened with there was somebody in this panel that we started doing a lot of virtual events, meeting online, and after a couple of years or a few years, we just like, oh, you're gonna be in town, let's just meet up. So that's really cool. And also the comment says, yeah, that's what is happening. All right, so I want to also add to this, because when you said you have chemistry with and great step is meeting the person in person. So here's the thing, right? I want to throw it out there for everybody. This is my take on this, is think about this, right? In the business world, especially when we're networking with people, I know at in-person networking events, sometimes it's overwhelming. You have 100 people in the room and you have to it's needle in haystack trying to connect with people. And sometimes people just and I kind of run away from people who carry cards and just look, yeah, here's my card. Here's my card. Here's my card, right? So that's for me, then I lose my headspace. So having the opportunity to sit down with somebody is a pre-qualification process for me, even pre-qualifying my potential client. I can sit down, book a call, sit down with me, just like what Steve says. If it feels right, if it's a right fit, then maybe I'll take the next steps. Hillary, what about you?
I totally agree with that. I think it does pre-qualify, and it also means that when you do meet in person, that the time you spend together, you already have kind of an agenda. I don't mean a secret agenda that I'm going to get to, but you have an agenda together that you've probably created. And also, I don't need loads of caffeine now. I've really reduced my caffeine consumption from not doing coffee meetings during the pandemic. But also, like Steve, we're not open up yet. We are literally just starting to open up here where I live. We are looking maybe to have full lockdown lifted in June, end of this month, but they're looking to put that to July. We can't have in-person large number of events at the moment. So we're still looking at weddings are only 30 people, and that's only just gone up last month. So for networking events, if you're having a small group of say 20, you could meet in person quite happily. But there is an excitement about meeting in person, I have to admit. But the way that we're going to do some in-person events will be different to how they were before, because people's motivation for being there is so different. And we've all had to adapt over the last 18 months. And I think we can't just walk into what was normal before, because it doesn't exist anymore. There's been a lot of loss, there's been tragedy, there's been people that don't have the businesses that they had, there's been diversification, there's been all sorts of things. So for a lot of people that we already knew, it's almost like starting again, and it's let's have a blank canvas and let's have a cocktail, let's have dinner. So we're actually organising some more social networking events, because I think in a lot of ways in my network here, the term networking has been greatly diluted, and it's very much about connecting and making friends and building relationships. It's almost as though people don't want to use the word networking anymore, and I can understand that, because we've become to rely so much on the emotive side of what we do. So that's where I sit on this one.
I love that you mentioned that, because now it brings me back to that time you and I met. We kind of just was in that blab room for I don't know how long, right? And suddenly, folks, and whoever said this, who made this comment earlier about meeting people online from everywhere in the world, this was what happened to me. When I started when I started to show up on Blab, that time it was just Blab, and started to kind of jump in from one room to the other, because one person is hosting one room, one person is hosting the other room, and we just, hi, hello, how are you? And many trolls troll much, I don't know, but it at that time it was really great, and that gave me that opportunity to build relationships faster. And lo and behold, is that what I've discovered through my own experience, and maybe some of you can probably relate to this, is the fact that I found myself connecting and engaging with people better online, because now I have their time. I have a commitment, I have a presence, I have a conversation. And if we start laughing tomorrow, I'll go, hey, Hillary, want to get on another call? Oh, hi, Scott. Do you have 5 minutes to get in that Blab room? Because it has been so much easier to connect and engage, because today I can show up for Hillary at 9 a.m., 9 p.m., whatever, and then I don't have to worry about the travel time. It makes that building relationship much easier and faster. And I know many people don't like this word, but authentic. I think it's organic in many ways. And for me, yes, though meeting in person is very important too, because we all started that way. That was the norm for many, many years. But now I don't find that to be my number one go-to, because I found my new normal. Boom, here we go. So does anybody else want to add to this before we go to the next
Yeah, I could just mention something if it's okay.
Sure.
Somebody, maybe as Hillary said it before, connecting versus networking. And the way somebody put it to me is networking is kind of like the bar single scene, where you're going after the meat, if you will. It's like it's a meat factory, and that's the ugly piece of networking. And I like connecting. That's why I kind of call myself the master connector, because connecting is way better, right? Making friends, making new relationships. All that is a big piece of it. So, and I agree that through virtual, you could do that more effectively sometimes, but you could also do that in person. I think the mentality of connecting versus networking, I think, is a huge point. That however you're doing the networking, you should make sure you're connecting, not just looking to get another number.
I want to add to that. Yes. I want to add to that. There is something that I always talk about. It's taken from the marketing world, but they say that in order to get a client, he needs to know you, like you, trust you, and that also applies for networking, and let alone the online networking. So when people know us through, let's say we're in the same group or community online, when they get to like us, when they get to trust us a bit more, it's easier to connect and form a real, as Steve said, connection, a genuine connection, a friendship that may go to business or may not. But I find that the know, like, trust process is very important to form relationship online. And in some ways, it's even easier to do it online.
I love that you mentioned that, and I think that's a lot of experiences that we get to share here in today's episode. And to the next question, I just want to bring up this conversation because I feel we all can share our experiences, but I also want to talk about the ugly part of virtual events, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the truth. Everything is like the ugly, the nasty. But when I say ugly and nasty, is the fact that what are the pitfalls that we have experienced in doing virtual events? Whether you're the organizer, you're the attendee. So while networking, what are some of the pitfalls? Maybe you can share one part of that and how we can avoid that, and maybe one takeaway that you have experienced that go like, oh my God, an aha moment, like, whoa, networking virtually is like this. So really one experience on a pitfall networking online, and another one is probably, a big takeaway, a lesson learned from networking online. Does anybody, Scott, you want to start us off?
Sure. So I have had the classic wearing a towel and forgetting there's nothing underneath it happen. Fortunately, I don't think much damage occurred from that. It wasn't me; it was somebody else on me. And I think my biggest challenge is staying focused on the meeting and not because I have 3 screens in front of me, so I'm not wandering to the other screen. Is probably my biggest takeaway. That's not an easy thing for a lot of people to overcome. Biggest takeaway, I think it was already mentioned, but the fact that Zeph can message me on Facebook and say, hey, can you hop on this meeting real quick? And I can do that sometimes, not always. I think that's huge because now I don't have to drive down. She's probably 35, 45 minutes away from me. I don't have to do that. I can just open Zoom or open even Facebook and just have a conversation there. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway, and to some degree an advantage, to some degree a disadvantage. But
thanks, Scott. Yeah. Who else?
I can jump in here. So you were asking Steve about the pitfall or some downside. I think what this started to facilitate was a lot more people pitching you, and nobody wants to be pitched or presented to. That's because we're on Zoom, there's a feeling like it. And so the pitfall was that. The upside is for me personally, and I've seen a lot of people on my network. I know Zeph, I think we met through Cameron Toth at his BizDev Live networking, and he did a lot of training on this. And Cameron, helped for me as well. But it's learning how to tell your story and connect with people in a real meaningful way, and not pitching them, right? Starting with that, like Lerone talked about, that know, like, and trust factor of really getting to know people and connecting with them. So the downside was I heard a lot of pitching. The upside was, and I also hate the dance. So what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? I say, and I usually stop it. I say, okay, and I'm polite, but I'm like, can we just talk a little bit about each other first, like our backgrounds, like the born and raised, the backstory, and then we can get to kind of, what we do, right? One time a young lady said to me, she was almost offended. She's like, oh, so you're correcting me? I'm like, no, I'm not trying to correct you. I'm just hoping to direct the conversation to more of a human conversation, not just this business. It's got to be about business, right? And so that was some of the things that I've seen over the last 18, 16 months, whatever it has been.
So
Thank you, Steve. Go ahead, Lerone.
Yes. Thanks, Steve. So I want to add to that I agree. I mean, in terms of pitching, and I think one of the downsides of or things to avoid is wrong way of pitching. I mean, I saw a research before the pandemic that 45% of the emails sent daily, which were about 12.5 million, were spam. So we can imagine that today it's way more than 45%. And we want to be in the good half of this 50 or so percent of spam. We don't want to be the spam email. So I think if we approach people, again, on Facebook, LinkedIn, social media, emails, whatever, more people are being bombarded naturally in the past year or so with messages. So how do you do it better? How do you do it in a way that looks genuine and looks good? And I think it's ever evolving. I mean, I always have this formula of be personal first, build credibility, give them value, be interesting, and a call to action. But I always need to make it better because, more people are also like me trying to always make it better, and it's harder to reach decision makers. That's on the one hand. And on the other hand, I forget what I wanted to say. But yeah, it may come back.
Yay!
It means you got to connect with Lerone and get that answer. That's what it means.
I was just gonna say that means you just have to stay within our tribe here and then connect with Lerone, because this is what I also love, because sometimes if we lose track of something, it'll come back just because somebody else in the show or when we're networking virtually will mention it and go, oh yes, exactly, that was exactly what I wanted to say earlier, So Hillary, do you have something to share about this?
Yeah, I've changed I used to be very British in my sense of once people had my email address and they added me to their emailing list without my permission, I'd kind of let it slide. And I've noticed that since we've been easing out of phases of lockdown, all these databases are suddenly being reactivated with people desperate to get money back into their business, which I totally understand. However, you have put me off in the first instance because you've just come back and said, we're open, we're selling, we're doing this. It's like when you make a new connection on LinkedIn and you think, actually, we've got Zeph and we've got Scott and Stephen's comment. And you think, okay, that's an interesting person. Let me check them out. So you connect. And then within seconds, you need the business insurance. We can give you these. And it comes through like that. That's a turn up. I've actually started now in the last probably 6 months, unfollowing. I don't take it anymore. It's like, I don't need that kind of noise in this calm utopia I've created for myself in a lot of ways where I've stripped away a lot of unnecessary noise. And to be very British, I'll say, it's just rude.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Steve. I agree on that. And I can say so much about that too. But I know Steve can do a better job than I do. So I'm going to let him go.
No, you know what? Honestly, we're talking about pitching, people pitching you, right? And so, in messaging and on LinkedIn, I give people the benefit of the doubt. Listen, we don't know where they come from. We don't know if they were trained. So I like to give them grace, because I hope I was given a lot of grace, and I have been given a lot of grace over the years. So here's what I say, and I use this to teach them, but also hopefully direct them. And I'm going to read it because I don't have it memorized, but hi, I really appreciate the aggressive approach. But to be honest, I'm big on doing people with who I know, like, and trust. I much prefer to get to know someone before I'm ready to be presented something. However, I'm open to have a phone call, not to hear the pitch, but to really learn more about each other professionally. If we feel good after that, we can have a follow-up meeting and learn more about your product or service. I hope that makes sense. So what I've done is I've taught them, but I've also said, hey, if you really want to network, I'm open to network, but don't pitch me.
Yeah. Yep. I love that. I think because, everything's virtual, people have this gray line, like they think they could just cross over without an invitation or permission. Thank you all for sharing that. And we have about 5 minutes before we end the show, but I just want to say, everyone who is tuning in right now, whether you're watching on a replay or you're watching live with us right now, this is We Do Virtual Events Live, a talk show featuring trailblazing conversations with global virtual event pathfinders who reimagine the traditional event experience. And we have the speakers here today on the networking panel, and we are talking about exploring a new normal for networking. Now, does anybody else want to add to that before we go to the next thing? All right. So I was thinking, there were some statements, when we talk about virtual events, and for me, I do a lot of live virtual events. So a few things or statements come up often. And one of and I would like for us to debunk this, like quick 30 seconds per person, per statement, if we can go around the room. So one of the statements or, phrases people keep throwing at me, oh, virtual networking is too hard because I don't like technology. Steve, go.
Well, you need to change. That's my listen. That probably means you're probably old, or you think like an old person. So change and get young and get in the new millennial. That's what I would say, in a nice way,
Hillary?
in a very polite way.
Yay! I love that shit. I'm gonna pound you, pow you right now. Okay.
In a British polite kind of way.
Oh, absolutely, splendid, spiffing. I think if it was someone that I knew that was approaching that they don't like technology, I would see if I could point them in the right direction to help. But I would turn around and say, if I can jump on a call or a training, anyone can jump on a call. So I'd probably put myself down a little bit of my lack of technology experience just to make them feel better, because sometimes people just need a bit of encouragement to actually step out of their own comfort zone. So
I agree. Scott, our tech guy.
Yeah, so I'll premise with this. FaceTime, everybody knows how to use it, and they are actually, for iOS 15, making it more like Zoom. So think about that for a moment. If you can use FaceTime, which I would say most iPhone users can, you can use Zoom and most other online platforms for virtual networking.
Boom, Laverne.
So I would say that I used to have a fear of technology way back in the days, and I would tell this my story and share how I came to know more of it and enjoy it. And again, as you guys said, we have to use it today. So if you want to get somewhere, if you don't want to do something, you need to do it to learn it and overcome that fear. Full stop.
I agree.
Yeah.
Boom. Here's my quick take on this. Folks, if you have one of these and you remember when you had to change from that flip thing or the sliders, right? And then you change to one of these, right? How long did it take you to master this? And that's going to be how long it's going to help you to master virtual events and connecting with people in a virtual networking event. And boom, that's basically what I would like to share there. The next one, the next sentence. Well, it's always best, and the word is best, to be in the same room to meet and network with people. Hillary, do you want to start us off?
Sorry, I lost a little bit of sound there. Apologise. Do you want to start with Steve or someone else, and I'll pick it back up?
Sure. Steve, do you want to go? It's always best to be in the same room to meet and network with people.
Yeah, well, you're in a virtual room and you're in the same room, right? But the truth is, I mean, again, it's hard, it's awkward to get that business card. And I know people talk about connecting, but you know what? It's a different world. It's like comparing apples and oranges. They're both fruit, but they're different, right? So it's a different world, and you gotta adapt and change. That's my take on that.
Who wants to go next? Go ahead. Just jump in.
Yeah, I can say that I really think it depends on the person. Maybe you find it better to be in the same room, but most people actually are afraid of, public speaking and speaking to people. So it really depends on what's easier for you. Again, in the pandemic, we had to do most things online, but some people like it this way, some people another way.
Love it. Scott?
Yeah, I would say, going back to what I said earlier, it's going to, you're already doing it. So whether you recognize that or not, you're already doing it. You're meeting other people. When you're in groups, almost every group I've ever been a part of has always said, bring guests, bring visitors, because we want to grow. So you're already doing it. And you can't learn something new if you're meeting with the same people for years on end.
I agree. Exactly. I know, Steve, you have to go at 12. And I just want to say before you go, thank you so much for being here with us. And I'm just going to wrap up in a bit with predictions for, what networking will look like in virtual format. But before you go, maybe a quick 30 seconds on that. What's your prediction of virtual events and networking online?
I think it's like, I think Scott said it before. We made the transition. We proved ourselves that it can be done. It'd be very effective, extremely efficient in time. So I think it'll be here to stay. It's just not going to be the only means, which for a little while here, it was the only thing we could do. I think it's going to be a hybrid approach, but it's definitely very valuable. I highly recommend, if you haven't connected more with Zeph, she's an amazing lady. So definitely connect with her some more. A little promotion. You can pay me later for that, Zeph. But I got to run. Great to see you all. Nice to meet you, Hillary, LaRose, Scott. Look forward to connecting again.
Thank you, Steve.
You too.
Thank you so much.
Steve.
Make sure everybody, connect with Steve, and we have pages where you can actually get Steve's information. Bye, Steve. Thank you so much. So, folks, as we wrap this up, I just want to go back to Hillary because I know she had some sound issues just now. Hillary, you ready for us?
I am indeed. I think what's wonderful at the moment, I think we're going into opening a brand new dawn, a brand new beginning, however you want to phrase it. And I think what's really wonderful is that now we have options open to us. And also some of us have learned faster than others and can pass that knowledge on, and we can bring other people along with us. But I think there's some very exciting opportunities ahead. But the biggest thing for me is that we now have options and people are comfortable with those options.
Boom. Lerone, as far as the future of networking and virtual events.
I agree with everything that was said, and I think it will be hybrid. It will keep on, will maintain kind of a hybrid nature in a way.
I love it. And just like, what Scott, you've done with your groups, your networking groups, Main Street Networking was actually an in-person group. And now many of us have voted to be virtual, right? So your take on it?
Yeah, that group is going to remain virtual, and there is no intention of creating any in-person groups at this point. I think the fact that, we've had conversations about having other events around fathers and things like that, where, we're going to reach out, if not nationally, we'll reach out globally to other fathers. Because it's an important topic for me, and you can't do that with in-person meetings. So to Steve's point, there will be hybrid. It will remain hybrid, and I think for certain things, people will prefer to remain virtual. Summer's here, and my kids are going to be done with school in a few days. Me getting to physical events is going to be very difficult for the next couple of months. So.
I agree. I just want to say thank you all for being here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. And as pathfinders of virtual events, I think this is a great space for us to have this type of conversation. My take and my prediction is that, listen, I started this almost 10 years ago and it's still around. So history has it that it may still be around for the next 10 years, right? So wink, wink. So that said, I just want to say thank you all for being here, for tuning in into this show. And this episode has been about networking and exploring a new normal for networking. Until next time, we will see you in the next episode. Next Wednesday, it's 9 p.m. New York. And I don't know what time that would be in the other parts of the world, but where would you go and get that information? Literally is go to WeDoVirtualEvents.live to get all information. question. I see a few comments popping up. Thank you so much, whoever you are, Facebook user. Great show. Whoever this person say, thank you. Whoop, whoop. This is because I have a great panel. Duh. Hello.
That's Julia.
Thank you so much, guys.
Julia?
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you all for being here. Until next time, this is We Do Virtual Events Live. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank
Thank you.
you, Steph. Bye.
Bye.